might be helpful to have as well. And okay, uh, Matthew, would you like to do the opening prayers this evening, please?
Sure. So we'll start with the altruistic motivation. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience, may they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience, may they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. Dogla dang wa je pe dra, no par je pe gig, tarpa dang tam che kin pe bar du cho par je pe pa tam che ki so je pe. Ma nam ka dang nam pe sim chin tam che de wa dang den. Dug now dang drel nur du la na me pa yang dar par. Dag par zog pe chang shub rimpo she to par ja. The action bodhicitta prayer. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. De che du sang ma ge ki bar du lu nang yi sam ge wa la ko. Ma she bar du lu nang yi sam ge wa la ko. Du de ring ne sung te ni ma sang da sam gi bar du lu nang yi sam ge wa la ko. The long refuge prayer. We take refuge in the kind root and lineage lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. We take refuge in the kind root and lineage lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. Drinchen Sawa Dang Yu Par Che Pe Pel Den La Ma Dampa Nam La Kyab Su Chiyo Yedam Gyokor Gila So Nam La Kyab Su Chiyo Sangye Chom Den De Nam La Kyab Su Chiyo Dampe Cho Nam La Kyab Su Chiyo Pagpa Gendun Nam La Kyab Su Chiyo Pa Wo Kandro Cho Kyung Sung Me Sob Yeshe Ki Chen Dang Den Pa Nam La Kyab Su Chiyo. Taking the Bodhisattva vow. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. Jiangsu Ningpo Chi Ki Bar Sangye Nam La Kyab Su Chi Chodang Jiangshub Senpai Sogla Yang Deshin Kapsuchi Jitar Nongi Desheki Jiangshub Tugni Ke Padang Jiangshub Sempe La Pala De Dag Rimshin Ne Patar Deshin Drola Pendondu Jiangshub Semni Ki Gizing De Zinduni La Pala Rimpa Zindu La Pargi. The Short Refuge Prayer. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Sangye Shodang Soki Chok Nam La Jiangshu Badu Dagni Kyab Suchi Dagi Jinsugi Pe Sunam Ki Drola Penshir Sangye Drupa Sho. The Four Measurables. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness in the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering in the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness in the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering in the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Ma nam ka dang yam pe sem chen tam che de wa dang de wei your dang den pog your cheek dug now dang dug now gi your dang draw war your cheek dug now me pe de wa dang mi draw war your cheek ne ring chak dang ni dang draw we dang yam la ne paw your cheek. And then
You do the Sagaramati requested sutra on page 12, please.
likewise be extinguished. Extinguish all enemies to my purpose. Whatever evil forces are in me be defeated. Do this so that when I am victorious, all pure radiance melts into me completely purified. Take all this knowledge, food and drink peacefully, enjoy it, and be satisfied so that all obstacles may be destroyed. Be liberated from all obstacles, all general obstacles. Maras are defeated by this gesture of the Buddha. By reciting this mantra, may all the Maras be purified. As a result, may all the Maras be defeated. And apologies to everyone for my butchering of the Tibetan there. I need to get on learning the right pronunciation.
Well, that's okay. We're all in that same boat, so no problem. Thank you very much. That was very good. Just as a follow-up to what we were talking about yesterday, for you that are with us now and for you that are will be watching this on YouTube later on, that to be able to display these deity yoga cards that we talked about Shen Reze yesterday, the enlightened ones, to be able to have these in your space, in your room, someplace where you see them, if you have some kind of an altar, to have them out as remembrance, so that it inspires you to continue to do the practice and also to be mindful of the practice that you've done. So display these, that's what they're for. Does anybody have any questions or comments about anything that we've talked about thus far, or something that you'd like to talk about? Okay, we made an announcement that Lama Gershom is coming next week. He'll be here next weekend. So all of a sudden it's here. We made these plans last week and it seemed like I had 2 weeks. Now all of a sudden it's coming due this weekend. So that's really great. So those of you who want to come up to my home in Baltimore are most welcome. It would be wonderful if you do. we'll have a lunch and everything, so it'll be very nice and comfortable. And
Yeah, I would love to come, but I would love to come and cook food for you.
oh,
For lamas.
well, we'll send some pots down for you and some empty containers, and you can cook and fill them up.
Yeah.
That would be wonderful. Well, there'll be another time, I'm sure.
Yes, sure.
But it should be very good. Okay. All right. So tonight we're closing in on being able to describe, to talk about all the different chapters of the Jewel Ornament of Liberation. So this particular chapter is chapter 19, and this is the method of the 10 Bodhisattva Bhumis. So this is the method of the antidote to not knowing the method of practice for achieving Buddhahood. So we may not know what this practice is, but through this Jewel Ornament of Liberation, we learn the method to be able to do this. So becoming aware of these different chapters, of what these different chapters are saying to us, becomes an inspiration to us. We might not automatically right away grasp everything that is being said in the Jewel Ornament of Liberation, but as I say, it gives us inspiration to continue doing our practice at whatever level we are, and then slowly, these different teachings will become more and more apparent to you. You'll have more experience with them. And this takes many, many months, many, many lifetimes, many, many years. So the best time to start is now and continue in a progressive path that we've talked about so many times. So last time we were talking, that we had a meeting, we were talking about the Buddha nature, so the different qualities of the Buddha. So now we're talking about the Bodhisattva as the Bodhisattva is approaching Buddhahood. So these are the purification stages of the Bodhisattva. So if I say something wrong, please, call it out, say, just bring it to our attention so we can correct something. But otherwise, this is an introduction. So there'll be a number of things that we are going to have to leave out. We have limited time, but we'll hit on some major points. So if you want to take notes, I think that would be good. So first, we have to describe the word bhumi. So if you look, I'm looking at the outline book here. You can look in the Jewel Ornament Liberation. It starts on chapter 19, like I said, on page 164 is where it begins. So the bhumi is, it says, wisdom awareness supported by absorption, by which the continuous mental stream of the practitioner directly realizes the selflessness of all phenomena. So what this is saying is that these are like levels that the Bodhisattva is experiencing. And once the Bodhisattva experiences one level, moves to the next level, moves to the next level, moves to the next level after that. It doesn't mean that we can't study and read these different levels, but to really be able to accomplish each of these levels is a succession, is a progressive stages of the path. So the bhumis then are these levels that we're going through. And I've often used this analogy of like a spiral, that we're going around in a circle and we keep repeating the teachings and the practices until we become very familiar with them, even a master of those. And then we slowly move up to the next level, to the next spiral, which is a little bit of a smaller circular path. And it's a little closer to each other. So this would be the next path, and then the next one would be another bhumi, the third bhumi, and then the next one would be the fourth bhumi. So this is like a spiral, a conical spiral, and then finally gets to the 10th bhumi, and then it's like a point. And at that point, then one would be able to cross over into becoming the realization of the Buddha nature themselves, and to realizing that for themselves. So each of these levels is a circular thing that we keep going round until we're able to master each one of these different levels ourselves. So the significance of this is that this is the ground foundation. This is the successive levels the Bodhisattva attains. One bhumi becomes the foundation of the next bhumi. So that's the significance of this. It is a spiral of realization and of mastery. Mastery before we can move to the next level. So to give a description, I always like to give a context in which this is being talked about. So this first level is great joy. And this arises from the paramita of generosity. So we talked about the 6 paramitas some time ago, several weeks ago. And so the paramitas are the mind trainings. So the mind trainings lead to these bhumis. So this great joy comes from that generosity of being able to share one's time, being able to share one's knowledge, be able to share one's resources with other beings and so on. And this yields a sense of great joy. And we begin to recognize, we begin to see what this path is. And the entry into this path, this first bhumi, is what we call the path of seeing. You're seeing what's going on. You're realizing what's going on. You realize that it's like a stepping stone, like it's a staircase, like it's a spiral, all these different things. We begin to recognize that, and then we are engaging in this. So the second of the bhumis is stainless. So this stainlessness that arises from moral ethics. So the paramita of moral ethics means that we are leading a wholesome life, that we are virtuous, that we are overcoming any non-virtues, we're pacifying, purifying those non-virtues and so on, and that we become stainless. And so the second bhumi is stainless. The third is radiant, that the quality of the bodhisattva is radiant. We've talked about this many times, where it's like the sun is radiant and is shining forth with its light and its energy. So the bodhisattva at this stage is doing the same, is becoming radiant with the Dharma, radiant with its ability to be able to master the great joy and the stainless. So this is radiant, is the third stage. And the fourth stage is luminous. So luminous is lighting up. You know, there's radiance that's coming from the sun, that's coming from this energy that we have within ourselves. But when it lands on something that is dark, it brightens and enlightens that darkness. That's the luminous quality of the Dharma, the luminous quality of the Bodhisattva, to be able to do that. So this arises from perseverance. This arises from the perseverance to be able to continuously be doing this. And I missed the point of saying that with the radiant arises from the quality or the mind training of patience. So through our patience over and over again, do we ignite this radiance. And then this radiance then becomes the luminosity, or manifests the luminosity through our perseverance of constantly doing this over and over again. That not only are we radiant, but all around us is being enlightened as well. The fifth of the bhumis is very difficult to train in. And what this means is that this arises from the paramita of meditative concentration. So this meditative concentration is the process of creating our mindfulness, of stabilizing our mindfulness. And this is very difficult to train in. It takes quite a bit of time. It takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of perseverance, all the other qualities you see that are building up to be able to do this. It's very difficult to train in, but at the same time, once you engage in this process, it becomes very effortless that we want to do this. This is our natural state, and we want to be able to do this. And so as we engage in this, it becomes a labor of love, if you will, a labor of compassion. It becomes bodhicitta. It becomes the embodiment of bodhicitta, because that's what the bodhisattva is, a wholly enlightened being, and the substance or the bodhisattva is the embodiment of that bodhicitta, loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. So we're realizing that, we're experiencing that through the study of the Bhumis. So the next one is the sixth, is obviously transcendent. So obviously transcendent, that arises from the paramita of wisdom awareness, where the mind is such, the wisdom awareness. This is the mind, the big mind, and the little mind coming together and being able to recognize all this phenomenal nature, being able to recognize and experience absolute nature, and having moments with that, maybe not completely stable in that, but having experience with it, having realization, having experience with it. So this is obviously transcendent, that when you encounter someone or you encounter yourself through the succession of these pathways, to get to this point where you have your intellectual mind and your big spiritual mind have kind of come together, even momentarily, that there is this obviously transcendent quality about that. You recognize, oh, this is what I've been looking for. This is within myself. This is my natural state. And this is the natural state of all beings. So this becomes the satisfaction of recognizing one is a bodhisattva. One is on the bodhisattva path at the very least. So obviously transcendent. There's no ego attached to this. One of the qualities of the bodhisattva is being able to rest the ego. So there's no selfishness about this. There's no arrogance about this. There's no conceit about this. And in relation to being pure. So there may be some impurities that need further to be purified when we're on these pathways, but the one who has mastered each one of these levels, that ego would have been completely subdued. That selflessness would be the radiance that is coming forth from that, obviously transcendent. The next one is the seventh level, is gone afar. Gone afar, you know, it sounds like, well, at this point, we've gone beyond something that we didn't recognize before. And we can see that that which has been left behind now is far behind us, so to speak. So this gone afar comes from the paramita called skillful means. So skillful means, we didn't talk about these with the 6 paramitas. These are these last 4, the 7, 8, 9, and 10, are the paramitas, the final 4 paramitas. And so this one is the paramita of skillful means, the perfection of skillful means, being able to know how to employ, how to be able to actualize, how to be able to display the compassion that has come from the wisdom that we have been developing. We've been using the practices to help us to recognize that wisdom and to be able to employ that wisdom. And now we're coming to the part of being gone afar, where now there's no turning back. We are moving in a forward direction, and we're becoming very expansive in that process. Direction actually is falling away. The idea of direction is falling away. Things become very spherical. You know, we talk about the 10 directions, that everything becomes all encompassing, all embodying, and gone afar. This is the paramita, the perfection of skillful means, being able to employ the wisdom, the method. This is the method. Immovable is eighth, the eighth bhumi, and that arises from the paramita of aspirations and vows and wishes. So immovable, that we recognize that we are on this path now, of course, and that we are immovable from this path. This path is who we are, is what we are, and we are firmly on this path. It's not a case of being rigid. It's more a case of just becoming the embodiment of this. And it's immovable. That it is the essence of who we are at this point now. We had this essence within us before, but now we recognize it, and now we are immovably moving and stabilizing on this path and moving ever closer to our true Buddha nature, to the embodiment of our true Buddha nature. So this is the paramita, this is from the paramita of the aspirations that we have, the paramita of the vows that we take, the promises that we make to ourselves to keep ourselves on the path, to take in the teachings, to study the teachings, to develop our comprehension and understanding, and the vows to maintain our purity, to be able to overcome our impure nature for the sake of the pure nature of our Buddha nature, of our Bodhisattva nature. So the vows and the wishes. So sometimes it's just as simple as saying, oh, I wish I can do this. I want to do this. I have an aspiration to do this. I wish to do this. And it becomes a figure of speech for us to be able to stabilize our mind and say, oh, I'm not doing this, but I wish I was. Oh, this is what I need to actualize. This is what I need to do. I need to honor the vow that I've taken. I need to bring that aspiration to fruition. I need to be able to have the experience of the wish coming true. So this is immovable, that we are clearly on the path and firmly on the path. The ninth one is good discriminating wisdom, that we have developed this good discriminating wisdom that arises from the paramita of strength of the 10 powers of the Buddha. So this good discriminating of wisdom, we've talked about this in other terms a few times. And when we talk about critical thinking, is another way of saying good discriminating wisdom. In both cases, what we're doing is we're looking at many different things that the intellectual mind may want to be able to seize upon and be able to spend its time on and be able to fixate on or to move through or something like that. And with critical thinking or good discriminating wisdom, we're making choices. We're recognizing that there are some things that need to be put on the margins, some things that do not need to be focused upon at this point. There are likewise some things that do need to be focused on right now. Sometimes the things that need to be focused on are everyday practical things, and they need to be taken care of. But once they're taken care of, now we have the time, we have the resource and so on to focus our attention on the more spiritual things, or the more abstract things, or the more philosophical things. So being able to judge this, to be able to understand what this is the good discriminating wisdom that arises from the paramita of the strength of the 10 powers of the Buddha. So that begs the question: well, what are the 10 powers of the Buddha? So if you change your page to 33 here in this outline book, in the next page, you'll see over it says 10 powers. So the 10 powers, the Buddha has these 10 powers, and the Bodhisattva is developing, is cultivating these powers, has a has an experience with these 10 powers, one at a time in different situations and so on, and realize, oh, this is something that I need to really understand better. I need to develop more and so on. So these 10 powers are that we have power over our lifespan. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about these right now. It's not enough time for this. But there's power over the lifespan. There is the power of the likewise mind, to be associating with those who have likewise mind, of having the necessary provisions, have the necessary materials that we need to be able to conduct ourselves in this on this virtuous path that we're taking, to have power over karma, that we strive for a neutral karma, that we allow karma, past karma, the results of karma to rise up. We don't suppress it, we bring it up, but we allow it to be able to come to its fruition so that it can be neutralized. And we see the potential of new karma coming because we have these causes, we have these conditions, but we're choosing whether or not to engage in that karma or just let that karma just rest, and not let that action take place. Just let it rest. It's not necessary. It may not be necessary. So this is having the power of recognizing that. In other words, we're not destined to always be performing karma.
Lance, what does that mean? Is this appropriate to ask what you mean when you just these sentences about karma, like recognizing it, and then are you saying we don't have to experience negative karma?
Sure, yeah. I mean, we can see the causes for it coming. We can see a situation where we can get angry. We see a situation where we can be delusional. And you can say to yourself, oh, I'm not going to play that game. I'm not going to allow myself to have to engage in the action of that delusion or that hatred or any of the other causes that would precipitate as an action that then has a result. So this is why, the Buddha is very quiet. The Bodhisattva is very quiet. It doesn't engage. It doesn't have to engage. It sees all the causes and conditions. It sees all the suffering. It sees all the happiness. But it chooses not to get involved. And this is how we maintain our purity. Once we have a grasp or once we have an understanding of that pure nature, then to be able to stabilize it means not to have to engage in it in a way that is going to create more karma for ourselves. Because the karma has the results, and then we have to deal with the results. So I can't say it too much simpler than that, I don't think.
So Lance,
go ahead.
What I want to clarify from a practical perspective, because I think there's power in understanding what you're conveying, is the discriminating awareness, the discernment of this is this right here, you said the precipitating the development of a new potentially negative karma cycle is when you recognize, you have the knowledge to recognize, here's the start of the cycle. I can remain peaceful and neutral, or I can engage in the delusion. So So by the fact that it comes up, right, like you find yourself in these non-optimal situations, that may be the end of a previous karma cycle. And your choice to perpetuate another round of it is the discernment happening in real time,
Well, that's true, but it also can be a positive karma as well. It doesn't have to be a negative karma. It can be a positive karma as well.
Yes. Okay.
So remember, these are things that at this point, at this stage in our development, may not become readily apparent to us. But here, this is like trying to understand what's in front of us to motivate us to thoroughly engage in what we have right now.
Present moment. Yes. Okay.
Does that make some sense to you?
It does. I'm right now. I'm digesting what you're saying intellectually, like really thinking about what you're saying, and then thinking about the practicality of my day to day, right? Like listening and then saying, how does what you're saying apply to sequences in my day where there's constant opportunities for me to apply the words you're saying and saying that karma sequence or that cause and consequence, that cause and consequence.
Yes, but there's still the other element of the actual meditative practice. So if we're thinking, we're intellectually processing this, we're not engaging in a meditational way. We're not experiencing it from that level. And so all this is to inspire your daily practice, to develop that meditation practice, because all this becomes as a result of developing that practice. And we can't intellectualize our way into this, is my point. There may be those who can. I wouldn't say that it's exclusive or anything like that, but it's a very difficult path to be able to do that. So to avail ourselves of the meditation practice is where all this starts to become clear. All this becomes coming together. It takes time, it takes patience, it takes perseverance, but all these things become naturally apparent because all this wisdom is within ourselves. Right now, we're rationalizing all kinds of things. We're rationalizing our intellectualization of this. Oh, I got to intellectualize this. I got to understand this. But once you experience it at the heart level, it just blows this away.
Thank you so much for taking time to discuss that. I didn't mean to off-ramp us from your discussion of the paramitas and
No, that's fine. I'm glad you brought it up.
Thank
That
you.
you raised the question. No, absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So we're talking about the 10 powers of the Buddha. So the fifth one was the power over birth. How it is that we are to be reborn, whether it's on the cushion, which we have, an immediate response with, or an immediate experience with. How it is that when we do our practice, we're sitting on the cushion, and I've said many times that we go through a death and we go through a rebirth while we're sitting on the cushion. And you finally say to yourself, oh, I'm not going to play that game anymore. Now I see what I've been doing to myself all this time. And now I'm not going to do it anymore. So I'm going to reborn. When I get up off this cushion, I'm going to be reborn as a more pure being on the path, because I'm not going to play that particular game anymore. Whether it's hatred or it's delusion or it's jealousy or all of its permutations in the way that it affects our lives and so on. And we just let it go. We're just chopping it off at the root and not even watching it go down the rabbit hole, go down the toilet or something, whatever metaphor you want to use for that. It's just gone. You know, remember the Heart Sutra. You know, the Heart Sutra is at the essence of this. You know, and we talk about Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Buddhi Soha. It's gone. It's really gone. It is so gone. I can't even remember what it was just a second ago. That's how far gone it is. So then power over wishes. You know, sometimes you have to be careful for what you wish for. You know, and to know how to do that, you know, and how to take responsibility for that, for ourselves and for others. And the 10 power over aspiration prayers, the same thing. You know, what we aspire for, you know, the responsibility that comes with that. Are we ready to accept that? How do we deal with that? The responsibility of miracles, what some would call miracles, for the Bodhisattva, for the Buddha, is just everyday quality. It's just every day what is happening. And to have power over those over miracles like that, and not to see them as miracles, although other beings would see them as miracles, to understand what that is. And then wisdom awareness, the power over wisdom awareness, what it is that what we're capable of doing within our mind, our intellectual mind that has now become one, if you will, with the heart mind. The wisdom awareness of that. And how do we allow that? How do we allow those qualities, that quality of that, to be manifest in our activities? And then the last one is the power over Dharma, the power over the pathway itself, the power of the truth body, to be able to not that we are controlling it, but that we become inseparable from it. That it is the continuum of the vibration we use, the metaphors, the different metaphors, and so on. But the power over the Dharma means to be able to harmonize with that. It's not something that we control. It's something that we allow, we become part of. And it permeates all things. All those things that we don't even know what we don't know. So this had to do with going back to where we were. This was the good discriminating of wisdom. This was the 9th bhumi. So you can see how rare this is, how subtle this is. We're at the 9th bhumi. There's only one more to go. At the very top of this spiral cone, the very top, how very subtle this is. That arises from the paramita of the strength of the 10 powers of the Buddha. So now the 10th bhumi itself is the cloud of Dharma. The cloud of Dharma. What is the cloud of Dharma? That doesn't make any sense. You know, a cloud means to us might mean an obstruction. You know, something that is getting in the way of seeing clearly and so on. So this arises from the paramita of primordial wisdom. The paramita of primordial wisdom. So this primordial wisdom is that absolute nature that is inconceivable to ordinary human beings. It's unborn. It's non-conceptual. It's non-dual. All these things that we talk about it in what it's not because we can't say what it is. It's inexpressible. But this cloud of Dharma is like a rain. And this cloud of Dharma, this truth, is raining down from this cloud. And this is a good, positive rain. It's there for all beings. That this life that we have, the samsara, nirvana life, and so on, is a display of that rain. You know, we're in that rain. That Dharma is apparent. It permeates everything. So this cloud is like that rain. Where does the rain come from? It comes from this cloud, and this cloud is not like a negative thing. It is the source of this truth. So the cloud of Dharma, to be the source of this Dharma, the source of this truth. I've also seen it expressed that it is like a blanket, in a way that we blanket ourselves in the Dharma, in the truth, and it protects us from all the vicissitudes, all the changes, all the things that are happening in the mundane world, the cold, the heat, all the radiation, you know, not getting sunburn, all these different things that we expose ourselves to in this world. The Dharma is like a blanket that protects us. So there's two ways of looking at it: as a blanket that protects us, and as a cloud that produces this rain of truth that we are part of. So this is so that was the cloud of Dharma that arises from the paramita, the realization of the primordial wisdom. And again, this is an experience. We can't intellectualize our way into this. You know, we can talk about it like I've just tried to explain, but to actually experience it is a mind blower, right? That's what we're doing. We're finding ourselves that within ourselves as ordinary human beings who have learned to develop one-pointed mindfulness, and as a result, experience the mind in a way that we could only imagine. Now we're experiencing the heart mind in ways that just blow this little mind, this intellectual mind, away. But yet now this becomes who we are. And all the games that we play with this little mind just all fade away. You know, we can say, oh yes, that was my name before. That was my characterization before. That was what I did before. You know, you can look at those things, but not in a self-aggrandizement kind of a way. We say, oh, these are the stepping stones that brought me to where I am now. And sometimes those stepping stones were very difficult trials and errors. Sometimes they were periods of great happiness and understanding. But at this point now that we're talking about this primordial awareness, all that is just gone. All the, you know, we're not attached to being a human being. You know, the Mara that is holding the 6 realms of human experience is now it's released. It's gone away. So there can be many more metaphors about this, and this is what, you know, the great poets and the great artists, you know, may write about. You may hear about these things being expressed by these great beings who are trying to make these connections, you know, from this primordial awareness, from this primordial wisdom to ordinary human beings, and it comes through in their art. It's transcendent art that catapults us to another place of like a mnemonic. You know, we just see something and whoa, it just blows my mind. So we experience this ourselves. So whether we can do it in this lifetime or another lifetime or a lifetime after that, you know, becomes okay, if that's what it takes. we begin to see that our lifetime is but a stepping stone itself. We're in this space and time to be able to recognize these things, to recognize our true nature, not just as a human being. The human being is the vehicle in which we're recognizing our true nature. The true nature is in our heart center. That is this absolute true nature that we have a name for. As Buddhists, we call Buddha. But the Christians would call it the Christ. Other traditions might call it the Brahma. They might call it God. They might have Yahweh. They might have all different kinds of names for it. That if we could be any one of those names, if we could be that which we're talking about, it would be that mind-blowing experience that I'm talking about. So we talk about that, we have the three modes, the three actions in which to be able to do this. The action of listening to the teachings, studying the teachings, engaging in the teachings. Then the practices of what the teachings are telling us to do, to actually engaging in those teachings, to implement those teachings, etc. And then the meditation, the actual transcendence of what those practices are leading us to. They are giving us the ability now to be able to, we talk about, leaving the body, they talk about all this new agey stuff and everything about leaving the body, going into the astral plane and all this kind of stuff, and these are caricatures of what, we're trying to experience in Buddhism, which is that Buddha mind. And so what we talked about yesterday, I made the point, and we had the question, Gavin asked the question about, well, who are these enlightened ones, these deities? Who are they? They're meditational deities. We realize the impact of these meditational deities, these meditational enlightened ones that are within ourselves. So it becomes Gavin Shenreizing, it becomes Matthew Shenreizing, it becomes Zara Shenreizing, Karina, Bernie, Feza. We become Shenreizing. We become all these different deities. When we learn their qualities, we say, oh, yes. And then we become the embodiment of those things. That's why we study these. That's why we do these practices, because they help us to purify ourselves beyond that which we are not ordinarily able to purify ourselves. We have no frame of reference. So altogether, these 10 bhumis are the path to Buddhahood, the spiraling path. You can look at it as a linear path if you prefer. For me, it's this spiral, because we will remain on a particular level for as long as we need to in order to be able to master that level before we can go to the next level. From a mastery point of view, we can read these things, we can intellectualize these things, but we're not mastering them. But they should be inspiration for us to engage in that. And as I say, it may take lifetimes and likely will. So what do you think of that? Somebody comment on this lifetime, that it takes lifetime idea.
I have a question that relates to that. How does the Vajrayana fit into this? Is in some sense the Vajrayana in response to like how long this would take to purify in this way, of just like the eons and lifetimes and like that, the Vajrayana is kind of almost like a solution to that, of like the pure perception you were talking about, or that's not quite right, I'm assuming, by you shaking your
It's
head.
an elaboration. It's an elaboration of wisdom. So it's if you get the book, the Abhidharma book, which is the book, of that is expressed in the Vajrayana is all these lists. And it's the mind of the Buddha. It's the mind of the enlightened ones to be able to understand it. It doesn't mean that you got to memorize all this stuff, all these things, but it helps us to clarify the experiences that we have in our meditation. You know, you have this meditative experience, you say, what was that? You know, and then you come back, you're off the cushion and everything, and you're trying to understand it. But then through these practices and through these teachings and so on, and then you can say, oh, that's referred to here in this text here, you know, and this is part of the Vajrayana. The other part of the Vajrayana, the thing that sets the Vajrayana apart from the Mahayana or the Hinayana, is the practice of the generation stage and the completion stage that is brought to us by way of the empowerment to be able to do these practices, to be able to engage in these practices.
Okay.
So we do this a little bit at a time. So every time we do the practice, we catch a little bit more of it. I'm sorry, go ahead, Matthew, you were about to say something.
No, I'm just taking in with what you're saying. So a practitioner, much more experienced practitioner than me, who is a Vajrayana practitioner, they would still be going through these 10 bhumis or having these experiences, but just through the method of the Vajrayana practices rather than to other practices. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Bernie, would you like to make a comment about any of this?
Okay. On the specific topic of the relationship between the Tantra and the Mahayana, the usual explanation that's given is that the Mahayana proceeds by cultivating the cause, which is the 6 perfections or the 10 perfections, and the Tantra proceeds by way of the result. So what that means in the Tantra, we take the position that we are already Buddhas and we meditate on ourselves as Buddhas. And that's considered a more profound and a more rapid approach than cultivating the paramitas, because cultivating the paramitas takes a long time. But it's also considered riskier for many reasons, because the attention is not being paid to things like morality and discipline and patience and so on. There's the danger that we lose focus on what the path is about. But, you know, if you assume you're just a Buddha already, which is the truth, but your idea of the Buddha is off, and you confuse your own egotism with that Buddha nature, then of course there's all sorts of problems that come out of that. So it's considered a more powerful path, but also a riskier path. And that's why a lot of emphasis in the Vajrayana is always placed on the relationship with a teacher, because there's always that danger that we misunderstand what it means when we talk about being already Buddhas. Not that that's a false idea or not, it's definitely the truth. But if we mistake our own confusion for Buddha wisdom, that becomes a big problem. So that's what I would say is for that subject of the relationship between the Tantra and the Mahayana. The Mahayana proceeds by cultivating the paramitas. The Tantra proceeds by recognizes our own innate Buddha nature.
Yes, thank you. So
Thank
that
you,
goes
Bruce.
back to the reference of the Prajnaparamita. You know, the enlightened, you know, the wisdom tradition of the paramitas, of the teaching, the mind trainings and so on, the Heart Sutra, the Lotus Sutra, the Diamond Sutra, are all speaking to that. Okay, does anybody else have a comment or question? What do you think about this notion of lifetimes? You know, that it's taking us lifetimes to get to where we are, but yet there's lifetimes yet to go. Zara, you turn your microphone on.
Well, as you know, my new favorite book right now is Transformation of Suffering, and I'm reading it over and over. And it's sort of like glimpse after glimpse, where you read it and then like you read it again, and like so I'm having all these aha moments because it's a really easy read for me in the sense that I understand it. And I've come to this place of peace with this idea, Lance, of I don't have to get it right in this body. I'm gonna be better and strive every day to do better. However, I may not get it right, perfectly right. However, I'm inspired by the story of Milarepa, and some of the other things that I've been reading. And so I feel comforted, if that makes sense. I feel I don't have a sense of grasping to my mortality. Like the idea of, so there was something, if this is helpful for those of you who haven't read the book, where they talk about if you remove the body, like you unlayer it, take the skin off, take the organs, so the idea of what you are, like this concept of you as an entity, and then it's all this interconnectedness, and it really made me sort of laugh at myself, right? Like it just unlayering the human body, right? This thing that we are so attached to, the physical desires, the need to visually, all the sensory inputs. And I've started to laugh at myself more, Lance, as I go through my day. I'm like, ah ha ha, like, just like, oh, I just start laughing as I'm working, and anger goes away faster now. I'm like, oh, that's that vision thing, or that's that touch thing, just sort of almost poking fun at my own humanity. And then it's become easier just to breathe through it. So like going back to your main question, I've become more comforted with the idea that this body is just a vehicle that I'm working through to do the best I can in the service of others. Like I literally go through my day now thinking of other people's suffering and how blessed I am to be on a path of enlightenment, to try even through speech or something as simple as hello, how are you, to make that other being suffering less. It's a privilege. That's how I'm in the process of that, and it's humbling, and I'm grateful. So I'm happy to have this opportunity in this body to do so.
Very good. So you see this body as a stepping stone. You see it as one body among many bodies.
Yes, I mean, I'm certain I've been born. Like I'm convinced to get to where I am. I've gone through a lot of negative karma, cause and consequence cycles to get to here. And so when I read through the different realms, and I'm thinking, oh, I'm sure I'm visited there, and I'm also comforted to know that we all can easily slip back. Easily, you could slip backwards. So, yes, Lance, it's become less scary. Like I'm more accepting of the journey.
Very good. Thank you.
Really, that's really powerful there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Zara, did you start this journey of with, I guess, just your spirituality or the Buddha Dharma with like the idea of like rebirth or multiple lives being an issue for you? Is that something that was a barrier for you, and then you like work through in some way, or that belief was something that was never really a barrier for you, or that you just kind of always felt gravitated towards or felt was true?
My journey with Buddhism was probably accidental. However, it was probably always going to be part of my journey. Adrian brought me to Lance, someone who's not on, and I'm inquisitive because the idea of Buddhism, because of my own background with monotheistic religions, Islam and Christianity, I fundamentally had an issue growing up with watching my parents fight over Muhammad and Jesus. And I said, neither of you can be right or wrong. You both think you're right, and the other one thinks you're wrong. There's got to be some other simpler explanation. And so the idea of spirituality just I became fascinated. And Buddhism was like the simplest thing where it was like, there is some cultural stuff, like the Tibetan stuff. There is some definitely cultural things, but it's the least complicated system I've seen to explain what happens when this body dies. It's the easiest way. Like if I think of a math problem, it's the simplest math. It's like addition versus like being Muslim is like trigonometry, or Christianity is like geometry, advanced algebra 2, and Buddhism is like, hey, can you use a calculator? And yeah, you can. Good job. Everyone can access this. And so that's why I've just sort of leaned into it. It's the easiest system to understand, and it's easiest for me to go about my day and describe. I don't talk about Muhammad or Jesus. I'm just like, oh, let's just talk nicely to each other. I just say things like that. Let's just be kind. I don't talk about anything else. I don't know if that's helpful. I don't know if I answered your question. It was by accident as an adult. However, I became curious and annoyed with my parents tearing down Christmas trees on December 25th and all this stuff. And I was just like, this is way too much drama. And so here I am as an adult thinking I found the right place, at least. I don't know. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, for sure. And I know for me, I do struggle a lot with the idea of rebirth. It used to be a big barrier to me a while ago. I've kind of come more at peace with, maybe that's the case. I don't know. I don't like really struggle so much against it. But my conditioning coming into Buddhism is much more not really from a religious tradition. It's much more from a very secular kind of Western scientific, not Western, modern scientific, post-enlightenment kind of worldview or frame. And the rebirth thing is something that's tough for me, for sure. And really, I just accepted it kind of as just like an open possibility. But really, my main reason for even it being like that for me is just that there's so much other stuff in the Dharma that I think is so brilliant and amazing that it's like, well, if this is also part of it, then, if I feel like people were right about so much of this other stuff, they very well might be right about this too. That's kind of where I'm at, but it's something that's definitely difficult for me. And honestly, I don't see like a clear kind of, how would I put it? Like rationale for why that would be the case, like evidence for why that would be the case. That's really persuasive to me one way or the other, I guess, is in all honesty kind of where I'm at with it. But it is something I struggle with.
Anybody else have a question or comment about many lives? Go ahead. Brendan?
Yeah, I'm sorry to be late tonight. I had to take my son to a basketball game that he was playing in. But as you see, I got my webcam to work, so I'm proud of that. But anyways, there was a Lama that I read about, and this is not me being funny. This is what I read, and he said he was asked, "Is it possible to not believe in reincarnation, but to still get benefit from Tibetan Buddhism and to get benefit from the practice and the Dharma?" And he said, "Oh yes, absolutely it is. But reincarnation is true." So I love that story, because to me, it's like we talk about our intellect, our puny human intellect. And it's like, trying to teach algebra 2 to termites, right? How hard that is. And so sometimes I think, we need to allow ourselves to consider what's possible, and to not be so locked up in our Western evidence-based brains. So Matthew, I feel you, what you're saying. And I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I'm kind of on the same path, and that's how I try to look at it in terms of reincarnation. I will also say that one of the many things that brought me to Buddhism was Carl Jung, the great philosopher and psychotherapist. And I am interested in the fact that his lifelong companion was the Bardo Toll. That's the book that he carried with him and always kept and read. And so that says something profound to me.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have a comment? Talk about reincarnation, having many lives. Yes.
I wanted to say thank you, Brandon. I didn't know about that information you just brought up. That's very interesting.
Welcome.
Hey,
The-
Lance.
Yes.
Lance, I was gonna ask, or actually anyone, have y'all ever had moments of deja vu where you're like, I've been here before, where it almost feels like a dream, and you're like, wait a second, did I dream this or was I here? Almost like the Matrix, right? Where you're like, wait, am I waking up in the same circle? And it makes me, and so the idea of rebirth to me seems very real. Like, I'm like, I've been here before. I've been in something similar, but I can't. It's like your brain is like, your subconscious knows it, but your critical forefront brain won't let you conceptualize it. It's like, it won't. Yeah. I'm just curious if any, because that for me is like frequent. And I'm like, I know I've been here in some version of this.
Well, that's interesting. Yes.
I don't know, maybe somebody see this is like a movie, Waking Life. Waking Life. It's like a paint movie. There are people, but they in paint, and they're very interested, like show about moment, what moment never stopped, like, and they're like guy, he's a wake up, but everything changed, like, you know, he's a different reality. How to say, like when everything is changing always, and he don't have a like back, you know, past. It's a very interesting movie. I think so. It's something with Buddhism, then philosophy have a like awaken life. Yeah.
I know what you're talking about. I've never seen that movie, but that's interesting.
Yeah, you can see that.
Well, there's many stories. You know, you can talk to everybody on the planet. You're going to get a different version of that story somewhere or another. You know, so I think, you know, one important thing is not to hold on to the ideas, the concepts too tight. You know, we got to let it go. You know?
Oh, that's interesting. I agree with that. I wanted to bring up this idea that physicists like Schwarberger have thought like reincarnation had to do with vibrations of the universe coming back into the cyclonic fruition of the zeitgeist, and that one's reincarnated personality, whether they had experienced that deja vu of living in a different body but having the same personality, that's just the cyclonic rhythmic expression of the musical tone that creates the personality of that occupies the vessel. And there, like Schwarberger created the acoustic mirror device, which could show someone at any moment of their life a preview of their death and what was to lead up to the end of their life at any moment of them being in the acoustic mirroring device setting. So it's interesting, this reincarnation idea, and then like who's playing the symphony of the orchestration of the universal spheres, right? And then it all becomes a musical. It's like, to my mind, after being exposed to such ideas, I do believe it's a musical we're living in. When thinking of reincarnated spirits in the vessels we occupy. It's very interesting. But yeah, what's the agenda? Like after you exit your vessel, do you come to a council of brothers and sisters who have an agenda of reincarnating? And there's like the movie Cloud Atlas. And that movie kind of shows an agenda of selves reincarnating into different bodies to have different influences to bring about at the end of the movie a different result. But it took millennia of time to get, you know, and through those millennia they were reincarnating. Like the reincarnations of Buddha, you know, what is Buddha doing after so many incarnations? Is Buddha ensuring that his philosophy will be established as a golden thread of the future evolution of the human race? What is Buddha doing, right? To have created such a great
what is Buddha doing right now?
Well, yeah, they say Buddha incarnates sometimes over and over. We don't know who Buddha is in this life,
And
or,
what he's doing.
or if Buddha is even alive with us at this moment.
Yeah.
Well, let's not get too far out.
Right?
The one premise that we got to come back to all the time, this time included, is the Four Noble Truths.
Mhm.
The Four Noble Truths is the Eightfold Path. And the Eightfold Path leads to the cessation of attachment. It's the renunciation. It's the cessation of all these things that we're doing. It leads to the freedom. And what is the first of the Eightfold Path? What is the right view? The right view is freedom itself. And freedom from the body, freedom from the intellect, freedom from all these different stories and so on like that we're concocting, that just become hooks for us to be able to pull us down. They all have some weight to them that are pulling us down, keeping us from being free. So the Buddha, what we call Buddha, is a free mind, is a non-conceptualized, non-dual free mind that for us is so elusive because we're so connected to our thoughts all the time. How can I do that? How can I stabilize that?
Right.
So the process that we're engaging in is to help us to recognize that freedom, to be able to dwell, to abide in that freedom, to prepare ourselves for that freedom. It doesn't have to mean anything. We're always looking for a meaning.
And I think what Lance, what you said before is where I've come to in a place that's been very positive for me of like not, which wasn't the case as much in the past, of like not holding on to the concepts so much, like having more peace about it too. And also realizing all of my thoughts about reincarnation are all based on wrong view anyway. Probably our thoughts about reincarnation itself mostly are as well, but like it's all these very reified kind of things of like the self, bodies, all of these things that that I'm then the picture in my mind of what reincarnation even is all kind of based on inherently existing wrong view anyway. So it's I don't know, kind of rambling.
Yes. So these practices that we do, learning and becoming one with the enlightened ones, these yogas. Yoga means union with these different aspects that are within ourselves, these different qualities that are within ourselves and so on. This is how we begin to experience, what it is to be an enlightened being. And being an enlightened being means to letting go of all this human stuff that is holding us back. But it's the human, but still having an appreciation for the human stuff that is allowing us to recognize this, but not fixating on it, not holding it. So it's like if we had a magic jacket that we kept in the closet, and once in a while we go put that magic jacket on, and all these wonderful things happen to us. But at some point, we have to take the jacket off again and put it back in the closet, and we go back to all this ordinary stuff. But if we can learn to control all that magic stuff that was happening while we had the jacket on, then we don't need the jacket anymore. So that's our life, that's our body. We have this body which is enabling us to recognize all these things, but at some point we don't need this body anymore. We don't need this life. We see it all as empty of being real. That there's a reality that transcends all this. So this whole thing about the Bhumis now is about being able to understand the Bodhisattva experience of purification. How we get to that point from our ordinariness as we are right now to get to that point of trying to get to be a Buddha, but going through this phase or these phases of becoming a Bodhisattva. So in order to do that, here we're just reading, a few things. We're hearing a few things, but there's a lot more to it in terms of now we have to practice this. We have to do the different yoga practices, the union practices, to recognize these qualities within ourselves. And as we do that, there's more stuff that comes. There's more food, if you will, for our intellectual mind to process in order that we can solve some of these questions, solve some of these problems, to let them go. Otherwise, they keep nagging us. When you're on the cushion and you're going through a practice, you're going through meditation, questions are coming up. Oh, I don't believe this. This isn't true. Oh, I think it's like this. Oh, the teacher's half crazy. Why am I following this? You're going through all this stuff that's in your mind and so on. But here, all these answers for all these questions that come up are revealed in these 10 bhumis. I'll give you an example. So in the first bhumi of great joy that comes from the generosity, we're learning that to have brothers and sisters, to develop relationships in a sangha, in a group of people, a community of people and everything, you want to have people like yourself. So you do this through the generosity of your time and your wisdom, your experience, and so on, and giving people the opportunity to share theirs. In other words, that we're not the one and only leader. The leader is opening it up to other people because your experiences are as good as my experiences, that are good as anybody else's experiences. So to have generosity is one of those things. The second one is to have a melodious voice. And a melodious voice can mean a number of different things. I think it means that we're talking in a peaceful way. We're not getting in each other's face and saying, oh, you dummy, you don't understand what I'm trying to say. You're wrong. And you should go sit in the corner for a half an hour and get your head on right. Or something like that, that you're saying, oh, I respect what you say, I understand and everything, and let's talk about it, let's think about it, let's even meditate on it and so on like that. And we can talk about it again next week or something. It's part of that. It's part of having a melodious voice, is being able to talk in a language with a vocabulary that we can mutually understand each other, that we're talking melodiously with each other. If we don't understand the vocabulary that you're using, you're talking in a different language, it just sounds like wonk, 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 wonk. What is our dog? What is our cat? Do they interpret our language? Do they understand? Do they really understand the words that we're saying? Or is it just wonk, 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 wonk? But when we go wonk, 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 the dog has a reaction to it. So it's having melodious voice that we can understand each other. So we're talking in a melodious voice is a way of gathering friends, a way of gathering disciples even, within our group and so on. Another one that's very important is implementing the teachings. That what we read and what we study and what we experience, how we implement those into our lives, how they change into our lives. So I think everybody here has had related some experience that you've had at one time or another where these teachings, and so you've had an aha moment and you've implemented it into your life where now, you're not letting yourself regress backwards into your old ways. Or if you do, you immediately recognize that and are repairing the damage and coming back to now your new thought, to that aha moment that you have. So we're implementing the teachings. And then the fourth one of this idea of great joy, having friends, having a sangha and everything. This one is living life as a practice. That this life is a practice. And I think Zara said, we're now we're fine tuning that practice. You know, I'm being the best person that I can. You know, to whatever degree I can be a bodhisattva, I'm trying to be a bodhisattva. Whatever degree I can be a Buddha, I'm trying to be a Buddha, or a practitioner, or whatever you want to call it. You know, so we're living our life as a practice, and as a practice, we make mistakes, and we have to, you know, allow ourselves the compassion for ourselves when we make those mistakes, and say we've learned enough to know that all this stuff is temporary anyway. We're not going to go to hell for these, you know, we're good people. We've done good things. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here in this place right now talking about these things. We haven't killed people. We haven't done these things, not in this lifetime anyway. Maybe we've thought about doing these things at one time or another, or stealing things from people, or we've lied to people, all the 10 non-virtues that we've talked about. We've experienced those in real time. We've done those things, but we have compassion for ourselves, and we're living life as a practice to be able to transform those things into virtue. We're not suppressing them. We're bringing them up and say, yes, I have told lies. Why did I tell lies? I told lies for these reasons. I did these things. Yes, I've stolen. What did I steal? Yes, I've done this for these reasons, and so on. And I've allowed myself to transform those experiences now into a purification, into a neutralization of the karma, so that we're not developing new karma, that we're attached to the happiness that we're created, because that can take us down a path of non-virtue, as well as doing something that was non-virtuous in its beginning stage, in its cause. So we're seeing that we become non-dual. So these 4 methods of gathering friends, gathering disciples, you know, being part of a group and everything, is part of the great joy of being a bodhisattva, the path of seeing. And as we do this, we develop distinctive abandonments. There's things that we leave from behind, and these are defined as the 5 fears in this particular bhumi. So the fear of making a living. You know, we talk about the eight karmas, the eight concern, the 8 worldly concerns we have, you know, and gain and loss, you know, and we have this fear of that. Oh, I got to earn a living. Oh, I got to support the family. Oh, we got to live in a nice house. We got to go to the good schools with the kids. I got to have a new car. How am I going to do all this? You know, and some people are just fixated on having to do that they can't think of anything else. But if they can put that on the side for some period of time and be able to just relax and have the contemplative, meditative experience and enjoy that freedom for however long they can, then when they come back to their mundane lives and have to deal with those everyday problems, they do it with a fresh way of looking at it and less attachment to it, and a more honesty in what it is that they're doing. And maybe they need to make some tweaks. Maybe they need to make some changes, either in their lifestyle or in their own minds. So to be free, to be able to do that, to be free, to not have the fear of doing that. The next one is the fear of not getting praise. Everybody likes praise. Everybody wants praise. Everybody's looking for a pat on the back and so on. And by doing what we're doing here, you're not going to get praise from your families. You're not going to get praise from your people at work. If you told them these kinds of meetings that we're having and these conversations, they're likely to be throwing all kinds of objections to you. Why are you wasting your time on all this? You know, whether it's from a religious aspect or it's a time aspect or whatever, you know, but we get to a point where we're not afraid of that anymore. There's no fear of getting praise. My praise comes from within myself, knowing that I'm on the path that I need to be on. And it's reaffirmed in these different prayers that we do over and over again. So we're praising ourselves through these prayers. Then there's the fear of death. So this is what we were talking about just a few minutes ago, about this life, and have we had prior lives, this life, do we have future lives? It becomes less of an issue to us. The only thing that we have to deal with now is this life. And if we do this life properly, whatever life there is after this will take care of itself. And if we've gotten here because of the virtuous things that we've done in the past lives, or just yesterday, and we see that we're in this good place, well, then we can rest assured that in the future, things are going to take care of themselves too. So that to have this fear of death is an imagined thing, is something that we create for ourselves, is a delusion that we create for ourselves. There's nothing to fear but the fear itself. So then there's the fear of rebirth in the lower realm. So like I just said, if we're doing good things, we have nothing to fear about going into the lower realms, you know. And even if we did do bad things yesterday or 2 years ago or 5 years ago or when we were a kid or something like that, and we have allowed those that fruition of those deeds, of that karma to rise up, and we've looked at it four square, and we've been able to understand what it is and become resolved that we're not going to do that again. And I'm going to use the practices as a means to stabilize my virtue and so on. Then we don't have to be fearful of going into the lower realms. And even if we did go into the lower realms, we would go into the lower realms as a bodhisattva for the job of helping those beings in the lower realms. That we would be there as a means to help them. And maybe our misdeeds need that degree of commitment to the process of helping those people in those suffering realms. And that's going to make me stronger. Or not selfishly are we doing that, but we're doing it for the benefit of other beings. So imagine, the bodhisattvas, we talk about the 8 great bodhisattvas. They remain in our mindfulness in order that we have examples of purity, of purification, of excellence, of the supremacy of their embodiment of body, speech, and mind of the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, the bodhicitta, all that there. So if our job is to go into the lower realms, okay, I'm in for it. I'll do it. It's only temporary. It's only going to help other beings. And if that's what I got to do to help other beings, that's what I'll do. So the fear of rebirth in the lower realms. So we abandon the idea of all these things, and we abandon the idea of stage fright. It's great that they put this in, the stage fright of large gatherings, because the more that we get involved with this, the more that we have opportunity to share our experiences and our thoughts with other people. And some people have fears of, talking in front of people. Why? Because they feel that they are going to reveal too much of their own insecurities. But if we can let that go and say, my insecurities is an open book. I've been a damn fool all my life. I'm going to try not to be a damn fool anymore. And everybody out there is a damn fool in one way or another. And I'm just going to let it go. And I'm just going to tell my story the best way I can. And if I tell my story and not try and tell somebody else's story, the only story I really know is my own. The other one, maybe I read in a book or somebody told me, and I'm not going to get all the facts right. But if I can just stick to my story, then I've got that wisdom, I've got that method, I've got that truth to fall back on. And if I make a mistake, I can say, you know what? I was talking last week and I made a mistake and I said this. I shouldn't have said it this way. I said it wrong. Here is the correction for that. And now I move forward. So to be able to admit your mistakes and so on. So this is the abandonment of fear from talking in front of people, the stage fright in front of large gatherings, or just one-to-one with people. So that's an example of how being on this Bodhisattva path, you see, and following these instructions, reading these texts, this outline is fantastic. I read the whole thing today in order to prepare myself for this. And it's taken, from the book, so a lot of the wordiness of the book, which is worthwhile, but it becomes the bullet points that are in here, but they're all there. And I beseech you to bring these into your meditations, into your contemplations, into your readings. This is what will transform you. Our meetings here are just a means to inspire you to dig in a little deeper in ways that, we can't do for 2 hours once a week. And I'm not, I may not have that power to be able to transmit that as the way it should be. So we have to open ourselves up to the masters whose teachings have inspired thousands and thousands and thousands, if not millions and millions and millions of people over the many, many generations of human experience. Okay. Any other comments or questions now? When I say this about inspiration, what does this mean to you? Brendan, what do you think?
Well, Lance, you were speaking my language when you began talking about the first one about fear of making a living. I've got a daughter about to start college and I'm only 50 and I'm like, oh man, you mean I got to do this for 15 more years? It's hard and it can be scary. And that's one thing that attracted me to Buddhism, is trying to lose that fear. And I think it's got to be mindset. I mean, it's got to be how, there's that saying, of course, that samsara and nirvana are kind of the same thing if you become enlightened. I hope I'm not misstating that, but
No, that's right.
I think that's the path that I've got to go on. But I went off on a terrible tangent because you spoke to me so much in what you were saying. Can you repeat the question, please? And I'll be happy to answer it.
I was just asking, if this idea of being able to engage in the inspiration.
Oh, yes. Well, I get my inspiration a lot from reading about Buddhism. That I love to read, and I've got so many Buddhist books, and I read things every day that inspire me. I was, I mentioned that I was having a rough Saturday and reading Sunday morning, where the monk in the Zen monastery says nothing is worth getting upset about, even getting upset about the fact you got upset. To me, that was tremendous inspiration for me and something I needed to read yesterday morning. And so I expect I would like to get even more inspiration from my meditation practice as well. But yes, very often it's from what I read, from the wisdom of bodhisattvas and teachers that have come before me is what I really get inspired by.
How much time during a week, if you could quantify it, how much time do you spend on reading and developing?
On reading or on meditative practice?
Well, whatever, that is as a group of things,
Yeah.
What do you do to help develop your inspiration or actualize your inspiration?
I probably read about an hour a day, some type of Buddhist literature, be it spirituality, but always from a Buddhist perspective.
Very good. That's good. That's a very good. I mean, for a person like yourself who has a family, has a job, an hour a day is a healthy thing, and you're moving in the right direction. And
Yeah,
I'm
thank you.
sure as time goes on, you'll be able to manage more and more time.
That's the goal. I want to, when I retire, Lance, I want to be,
Yeah,
enough said. Yeah.
that's great, because when you retire, hopefully you can retire at a young age and you'll have 20 or 30 years, to concentrate on your spirituality.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to comment on inspiration and what you're doing to actualize your inspiration?
I find these groups, or like the sangha, the community aspect of it, to be inspiring for me, of hearing other people's practices, and even just like coming to the group. There's almost like a certain kind of like accountability for me too, of coming to the group, where it's like a kind of a rededication. It's like, okay, I'm here, and that's different than when I'm just doing everything by myself. That I've and like hearing about, like, great practitioners, or like we're talking about today with like the Bhumis and everything. And obviously it's not practical in the sense I'm not at the, these levels. I'm not like some direct realization of emptiness or anything, but it's very inspiring and keeps me wanting to practice, like keeps that kind of that flame going of wanting to practice and practice.
Do you have a practice now?
I do, yeah. In terms of how much I practice, it's not 100% consistent. I'd say a few days a week I'll like do like an hour of like the meditation practice of, like we do, and then the other days I'll maybe do like 20 minutes here or there or something. And there are some days I just miss it altogether, to be completely honest. But for the most part, I've been getting much better with it, over the last, I don't know, however long, 5-6 months, where I'm trying to get to like an hour a day, hopefully. But I've been changing some lifestyle stuff and getting up earlier and doing things. I've been trying to get real consistent with it, but not perfectly consistent for sure yet, but I'm trying.
Well, that's great. Yes. And, your candor in saying that is really good. And I mean, we've known each other for less than a year, isn't it? So that's really good what you're doing and everything. So.
Lance, I want to give other people in the Sangha a chance to talk. I've talked way too much tonight, but I just want to really quickly add, YouTube in the evening, if you're too tired to read, there's a lot of great Buddhist content on YouTube. My favorite teacher, other than Lance, has a lot of videos on YouTube that I enjoy. So that's an option as well, everybody.
Very good. Thank you. Yes, there's lots of great teachers that are on YouTube.
Yeah, I'm practice morning, every morning do practice. And this is like I love what every day I'm like more than calm. I think so calm. And I'm doing meditation morning, and also listening some audiobooks, Buddhism audiobooks. Yeah, before I'm watching, I love like Buddhism movie. It's my like favorite movie about Buddhism. I have some, like, if you're also Google Buddhism movie, there are many, and I'm before watching all of that. All this is little bit information, make your matrix become more useful.
Very good. Thank you. Gavin, while your microphone is up, how about your inspiration? Have you been, are you actualizing inspiration?
Yeah, I can actualize the inspiration because I feel the release of the pressure of living in this zeitgeist, and following the lessons we've learned has helped manage the flow. So that seeing that drives inspiration to dive further. Like Brandon said, try to get to an hour a day of reading. I haven't read a Buddhist book lately, except for what we do. So, but I'm very inspired, because even the Bardo Todal is just an inspiring concept of self, and how to physically conceptualize the navigation of past and pre-life, and then the destination, of where we're all going. This is all very inspiring, and that's the reason. Like Zara said, that Buddhism helps simplify what many cultural shamanistic developing ideas of the afterlife, or some conglomerates called religion, would be professing. It seems that Buddhism has simplified it, with not simply because it's a long, there's so many books, there's so much literature, there's, the songs go on and on and on. So it's not simple, but it's simple in the idea that a fifth grader could read it and not have to be like, well, who are these imaginary messiahs and all these things, and what are, so that is inspiring to know that, right? And to know that there's more on the path inspires me, right? Movies of Buddhist content and books are definitely on my path soon.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Faiza, would you like to speak on this topic about inspiration? How any of this or anything else is inspiring you to engage in these teachings, to engage in some reading or doing practice?
I feel like I have, I feel like I have an inspiration to learn and be a part of it, but I think I just struggle with exerting that action. And I'm hearing how everyone's just having so much success implementing that inspiration. And I just feel like I'm failing with like the pressure of all of these worldly aspects. And I'm not quite sure how to move past that. So I'm sorry to be super emotional, but I think I'm really struggling with it. And
Well,
it's something that I really want. And I believe in so much. I believe in so much of what Buddhism has to offer. And I've never wholeheartedly felt so comfortable with the ideals that it places right in front of me. But I'm having so much trouble initiating the action. I come home from work and I just dissociate so much, or, I deal with my family a little bit and I feel like I'm just dissociating and I'm not finding the inspiration to exert that action.
well, thank you very much for saying these things. And I know how difficult it is right now. And Faiza and I have had a conversation or two on the phone, and we're going to have another conversation. And so part of this is to, is the fellowship, is developing relationships with people. And just to hear each other speak, just to have an opportunity to do that. And, this is our format here right now is a bit of a lecture with a little bit of discussion, but that doesn't mean that there can't be other times that we can have where we can have more of a discussion between two people or three people or something like that. So when you have the opportunity to reach out to somebody or for help or to give help, is part of the process. This is part of the function of the Bodhisattva. The Bodhisattva is engaging. The Buddha just is. So there's a fundamental difference there. So in order for us to become Buddha, to become just is, we need to have engaged in a way that the engagement just becomes who we are. But meanwhile, we have to do the engagement to get to that point. So Zara, got a couple minutes left. I think you've said a number of times about how inspired you've been and how you've actualized the inspiration. Do you have any words to follow up on that?
I'm just very touched at everyone's vulnerability, honestly. I like Matt sharing, like you said, he's sharing with integrity. Like Fazla, thank you for your emotional vulnerability and being honest. I think everyone, I just love this group, and I think this is part of the experience, is what we're doing together. And I mean, I can deep dive and go off rabbit holes, but like all I can say, and Lance, you know this, like the last couple years have been truly transformative for me in this body in this lifetime, where I'm connecting like almost weekly, having exponential growth, spiritual growth, at least as I see it, as I describe it verbally, where I'm like today I was walking around and I had an ego moment where I was like, how dare my sister not think about, like, I have to watch her kids, but she's flying to go help someone who's grieving. And I had an ego check. I said, wait, you're stopping your sister from doing her work as a Buddha too, right? In her version, she's going to console someone and she's asked me to watch her kids. I was angry for about a minute, and then I realized you're impeding her doing good work. Of course you should help your sister watch your niece and nephew if you can. And I can. My ego was just inconvenience because I have to shuffle appointments around, but my sister wants to. So like every day I'm like, oh, like I'm connecting the dots as my point lands. I'm like, this is what Lance is talking about. These are the action. This is action bodhicitta.
And that's implementing the teachings.
Yes. And it's happening quickly. So for those of you who are like, oh, it's okay, just do something every day. Just do one step every day, and then it's like a rain barrel. Like all of a sudden your rain barrel is overflowing with bodhicitta. Like you've become what you've been describing. Just do one thing, Vasa. Just do one thing. And even if you're like, today I'm going to do this, smile one more time at someone who's homeless. That's one action. So I think it all adds up, and all of a sudden you're like, I am Buddha, I am doing this thing, and I didn't think I was going to be able to 3 years ago. And we're still doing it. But anyways, I'm excited. I'm excited at all of the challenges I experience daily, Lance, because now I'm like, oh, that's it. That's what Lance is talking about. That's it. That's the thing. That's the anger. And there's the diffusion. It's exciting to me. Like I get excited. I'm like, oh, here's another angry moment. I mean, it is what it is. You can see it as a blessing, or you can see it as an annoyance. And I'm choosing to see it as this isn't a blessing.
Well, that's good. Yes, we see our obstacles as our best teachers. Yeah. Thank you, Bernie. Would you like to say anything to sum things up, and maybe relate something in your life?
Well, what I found, I mean, throughout my practice, what I found most inspiring is reading the biographies of great teachers. And I can't say I've read any. Well, currently I'm rereading the 100,000 Songs of Milarepa. There's a new translation now, and I'm reading that. But day to day, what I get most inspiration from is my practice, just doing the practice every day and trying to bring some more insight into my understanding of what Buddhism is through my practice. I don't know what else to say, but that it's not as hard.
How long have you been taking teachings and practicing? Considering
you're going to make me sound so conceited when you talk about that. I became a Buddhist back in Labor Day of 1977. That was the day I first took my refuge vows. So I've been a Buddhist for almost 50 years now. I'll be in 5 more years, 45 years then. I've been Buddhist for 45 years, I guess. So
yeah. And the practices are still basically the same. And
well, there's something to be said with not changing practices every year or so, just to do the same practice over and over again and getting deeper and deeper. And I will say that when you do the practice of Chenrezig every day, not that I'm Chenrezig by any manner, but it really softens your nature. It does make you a more compassionate person. And just thinking about the qualities of Chenrezig and visualizing yourself as Chenrezig brings that quality of compassion into your daily life. What can I say?
Yes,
And
thank you.
that's all I have to say. So okay.
Thank you very much, and that's
Sure.
very inspirational.
Okay.
Yeah, so as they say, today's the first day of the rest of your life, and this is a lifestyle, and it blends with any lifestyle. We need Buddhist firemen, we need Buddhist lawyers, we need Buddhist teachers, we need Buddhist trash collectors, sanitary workers, so we can see that Buddhism offers a lot in terms of knowledge, of understanding, of tolerance, of love, compassion, etc. And to take up the practices is really a great thing to do as a human being. It's a gift that you give to yourself.
Faiza, you're in the WhatsApp group, right?
Yes.
Yes, I'm in it.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, because that helps me too. Just even just saying things, like, it keeps it fresh in my mind, and other people in there, have questions, or will send me things if interested in something, and that kind of helps keep things like the forefront of my mind too. Sometimes I found that to be a helpful thing, but I really appreciated, Faiza, what you were sharing, and something I can very much relate to in the course of my life as well.
Well, thank you. Appreciate the safe space.
Okay, well, thank you for all coming and participating in this tonight. I think it was great. Thank you so much for all your comments. And this weekend, again, Lama Gershom is coming. And if you want to come up to Baltimore, you'll be welcome. It'll be on Zoom. So I sent the flyer and all the information about it. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate. If you plan on coming up to Baltimore, everybody's welcome. We'll make room for everybody. But please let me know, register so I know that you're coming, So it's on the flyer, the email address and so on, so that we can make sure everybody is taken care of. So I would appreciate that. And anybody coming from Virginia, if you guys can carpool, that would be great, whatever works out. So that'd be wonderful. Thank you.
And if anyone, I'm planning on going on Saturday and Sunday, and if anyone's in Virginia or anywhere else and needs a ride, whether on this or on the recording or on the WhatsApp, definitely let me know. I'd be happy to give anyone a ride if they do need it.
Great. Thank you. All right. So, Matt, you are the Umze this evening. So if you could do the dedication prayer on page 21 and 22, the dedication prayer by Lord Jigden Sumgun, that'll be for tonight, please.
Glorious, holy, venerable, precious, kind root and lineage lamas, divine assembly of yadams and assemblies of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Yogins, Yoginis, and Dakinis dwelling in the 10 directions, please hear my prayer. May the virtues collected in the 3 times by myself and all sentient beings in samsara, nirvana, and the innate root of virtue not result in the 8 worldly concerns, the 4 causes of samsara, rebirth, as a Shravaka, Pratyeka Buddha. May all mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me and mine, obstructors who harm, misleading Mars, and the hordes of demons, experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may I benefit all beings through my body, speech, and mind. May the afflictions of desire, hatred, ignorance, and arrogance, and jealousy not arise in my mind. May attachment to fame, reputation, wealth, honor, and concern for this life not arise for even a moment. May my mind stream be moistened by loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, and through that may I become a spiritual master with good qualities equal to the infinity of space. May I gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life. May the torment of suffering not arise even at the time of my death. May I not die with negative thoughts. May I not die confused by wrong view. May I not experience an untimely death. May I die joyfully and happily in the great luminosity of the mind as such and the pervading clarity of Dharmata. May I in any case gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death or in the bardo. Om, Ah, Om. Om, Ah, Om. Om, Ah, Om. May my body, speech, and mind become inseparable from the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones for the benefit of all sentient beings.
Very good. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you on Zoom. Thanks, everybody. Thanks those
Thank you. Thank you,
YouTube.
Sarah. Thank you, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks, Lance. Good, everybody.